Hey guys, what's going on? Dottz here, and today I'm bringing you my Magicka Dragonknight PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Lost Depths patch. So MagDK feels a bit weird in Lost Depths. Not necessarily great or bad, it just feels a little bit weird. We got some interesting changes going into this patch. Rapid Regen got gutted pretty hard. Molten Whip got nerfed. Dottz got nerfed, and then Searing Heat also got nerfed. On top of that, Molten Whip also has dual costs now, with costing stamina and magicka. And so because of that, MagDK has definitely needed to have some adjustments to it. Thankfully, I was able to keep the core of this build relatively the same from my previous build for last patch during High Isle, but I made a lot of little changes that the MagDK needed, specifically to not only increase stamina sustain, since we now have more demand on our stamina now than ever, but the biggest thing is that we just need more damage, man, especially with the nerfs to Searing Heat that, in my opinion, felt a little bit unnecessary. They lowered our dot damage from the dot damage increase we get. I believe it was from 33% down to 25%. It gave us a not enough consistent pressure to really push people over with the stuff that I've been running previously. And so I really needed to kind of go back to the drawing board with a lot of small things and try to basically squeeze out as much damage from my build as possible. And thankfully I have managed to achieve that this patch. And now my class, my build feels very, very solid, and I've had really good success with it. I've tested this in duels, battlegrounds, open world PvP. It has worked in every instance. It's been very strong. I do plan on having a gameplay video coming out soon with highlights from my stream, but if you do want to see this build played live, you can find it over on my Twitch channel, link in the description below. But I will have a gameplay video coming out very soon where I have some highlights from doing some 2vx and 3vx with some friends, as well as the battleground, so you can expect those to come out relatively soon. But like I do always say though before my build videos, guys, this is just what I like, what I use, and what works for me. If you want to run something else, try something else, do something else on your DK, please go right ahead. This is just what I personally have found success with. Now, kicking the build off, guys, our first set is going to be 2 pieces of Balorg. So Balorg gives us a line of weapon damage, and when you use an ultimate ability, you gain weapon damage equal to the amount of total ultimate consumed, and physical and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount consumed for 12 seconds. Balorg is, in my opinion, a necessary monster set for Magicka Dragonknight this patch. Without Balorg, you simply do not have the damage to push over really tanky players. Unfortunately, it's just not there. Kind of stinks, but Balorg has just really fixed for me a lot of the problems that MagDK feels like it has on the offensive side of things, and especially with the changes to Vigor and out getting Minor Resolve, Magma Incarnate does become a lot less valuable for any sort of solo play just because you already get Minor Resolve from a skill. And so your monster set choices do kind of get they get a bit low. You don't really have a lot to choose from. And so for me, Balorg is just kind of perfect with the way that this patch and the past couple of patches have been, frankly, where you're not really pressuring your targets down, you're kind of bursting them down. And so Balorg gives you that peak burst damage when you're going for a leap into a whip combo. Also, Balorg does give you the option to pool your ultimate for a bigger smack of damage, depending on how tanky the target is. So for that reason, Balorg is my monster set of choice for the Lost Depths patch. Now, my front bar 5-piece is still going to be Burning Spell Weave, giving me a line of magicka, weapon damage, critical chance, and when you deal damage with a flame ability, you apply the burning status effect to an enemy and increase your weapon and damage by 490 for 8 seconds, once every 12 seconds. Burning Spell Weave is still, in my opinion, going to be your best offensive set simply due to the fact that the uptime is very solid. Combine that with the fact that you get the burning status effect application, which, assuming combustion is not on cooldown, that gives you about 1,000 magicka returned. And on top of that, BSW is non-conditional weapon damage. Now, and it also is a buff on your character. So what that means is that if you do proc BSW on your front bar, and then for some reason you need to go back to your back bar, you simply bar swap, and that buff from BSW is still there and will apply to your Vigor, your Coag, and your back bar abilities. It is just something that makes BSW a very valuable 5-piece set, and it is why I've always run it on my front bar. Now, my staple back bar 5 piece has not changed. That is still going to be Daedric Trickery. Health, stamina, magicka, and when you deal damage, you gain 1 of 5 random major buffs for 21 seconds every 9 seconds. Expedition, protection, mending, heroism, and vitality. All of which are very valuable. Mending and vitality give you huge boosts to your healing. Protection just straight up makes you tankier. Expedition is kind of meh, but you know, can still be nice to get. But the MVP of this set is going to be the major heroism. If you combine the major heroism from Daedric Trickery with the minor heroism from our potions, your ultimate gain is through the roof. It also combines extremely well with Balor, because obviously if you can ult more and if you could also generate ult faster, you have the chance to keep Balor's uptime higher or even achieve bigger Balorgs faster. On top of that, I've actually tested Daedric Trickery against dedicated sustain sets, and the heroism just feels like it beats them all out. On top of that, getting those nice pads to all 3 of your resource pools does feel great to help round out our stats at really, really nice amounts. And so for that reason, Daedric Trickery has still been a DK staple for me and my favorite back bar 5 piece of choice. It also doesn't negatively impede you in any way, and so for that reason, it's just easily a DK staple of mine. I'll pretty much always run BSW Trickery until either some new cracked set comes out or one of them for some reason gets nerfed, which I don't expect to happen. Now, with this setup, you end up having 2 one-piece slots. So our first one will be Trainee to just boost our health a little bit more, just give us a bit more HP, which is very valuable for survivability. And then our other set, which is going to be our Mythic, is going to be the Mark and Ring of Majesty, giving us 200 weapon damage and 2300 armor. Very well-rounded Mythic, again, does not negatively impede us in any way, gives us a big boost to our offensive and defensive capability on just a one piece, and so there's just so much value out of this Mythic, and it has been one of my favorite Mythics in the Elder Scrolls Online ever since it came out back in Deadlands. Now, the big thing I want to break down with this build is going to be the weights, and mostly the weights from the gear. Now, in terms of enchants, we are all tri-stat on your gear. I do apologize to your wallet, but it is the best. In terms of your traits, we're going to go reinforced on the chest, that is heavy, and then impen on everything else. But where this patch differs from the past is going to be the weights. I've always run a 3-3-1, but not this patch. I actually run a 3-2-2. We run 2 heavy, 2 light, and 3 medium. Now, you might be asking, well, Dottz, why do you do that? So, believe it or not, MagDK's sustain issues this patch do not come from your magicka pool, but from your stamina pool. Specifically due to the fact that you not only have Noxious Breath pulling out of your stamina pool, you have Resolving Vigor pulling out of your stamina pool, you have Molten Whip now pulling out of your stamina pool, and you have all core combat stuff pulling out of your stam pool. And so for that reason, you do have a lot of demand on your stamina. And so medium armor just helps with that based off of the passive that you get. On top of that, this patch is very, very focused around peak damage. It's all about burst right now. Consistent pressure is dog water this patch, and so because of that, you really, really need to be bursting people down, and that is where the the agility passive is nice because it gives us more weapon damage, but that is primarily where the dexterity passive comes in and increases your critical damage and healing done by 2% per every piece of medium armor equipped. And so when you do hit a crit wearing 3 pieces of medium, your peak value is going to be very high, especially due to the fact that Balor is supplying a lot of penetration for us when we do ultimate and have Noxious up. Oh man, like the crits can hit really, really, really hard. And also, especially with Balor giving us that extra weapon damage too, agility also gets a lot more value as well, giving us extra bonuses on that weapon damage and just giving us higher peak weapon damage, especially because the DK does also have major and minor brutality. So running the 3 pieces of medium on the DK this patch just feels like it has a lot of value. I tested running 3-2-2. I tested my normal 3-3-1, 3 heavy, 3 light, 1 medium. I tested 3 heavy, 2 medium, 2 light, I think. Yeah, that's enough pieces, right? Yeah, 7. I tested a lot of different armor weight combinations, but to me personally, the 3 medium, 2 heavy, 2 light felt the best. Now, you're going to have to be a lot more strict with your replacements. So your gloves and your belt need to be light. Your chest needs to be heavy. And then basically, like, of the 4 remaining pieces, you know, make 1 heavy and 3 medium. It doesn't necessarily matter what slots they're in, just due to the armor weights being the same. In terms of your jewelry traits, you have 1 arcane with a weapon damage, 1 infused with a weapon damage, and 1 infused with a reduced skill cost enchant. We are no longer using reduced magicka cost here. We need the reduced skill cost simply due to the fact that reduced magicka cost doesn't work on Molten Whip anymore. It doesn't work on Vigor, obviously, and it doesn't work on Noxious Breath. So having this reduced prismatic cost is really, really valuable because it will reduce the cost of every single one of our skills, including both halves of Molten Whip. And so for that reason, this is going to be your new cost reduction glyph that you want to use on the Magicka Dragonknight. For your weapons, we're going to have Nirnhoned Mace, Nirnhoned BSW, because BSW is obviously on the front bar, with a Magicka glyph. The reason that we do this is due to the fact the Absorb Mag is due to the fact that we have charged on the offhand. And so by hitting somebody with this glyph, you have the opportunity to apply the overcharge status effect, which gives you minor Magicka steal, and it is a huge form of sustain. So very, very good enchant here, especially we don't really care about flame because we have enough stuff proccing flame. And then on the offhand, we do have a poison enchant for the opportunity to get stamina combustion. And then the charge is going to give us a really high probability of making that happen. And then on our back bar, we are actually using an Ice Staff now. A defending Ice Staff with weapon and spell damage. The reason we use an Ice Staff and not a Sword and Board is because I do want the opportunity to heavy attack for Magicka should I need it. We no longer run a Resto Staff because we no longer use Rapid Regen because it's really bad now. And so to me, having the Ice Staff with the ability to block is going to be really, really valuable. Obviously, no points in a Tri-Focus because we do want our block to come out of our stamina pool. So we use a defending Ice Staff with a weapon and spell damage glyph. Now, guys, moving into our skills. Our first skill is going to be Molten Whip. I don't really know how I feel about the new Molten Whip. I really don't. But regardless, we deal 8.8k flame damage or whatever your tooltip is. And then you strike an enemy immobile or stun. You set them off balance. And then when you activate a different Art and Flame ability, you gain a stack of Seething Fury, increasing the damage of your next Molten Whip by 20% and your weapon and spell damage by 100 for 15 seconds. This effect stacks up to 3 times. I don't really know how I feel about the new Molten Whip, if I'm going to be honest with you. It definitely feels weaker than it was in the past, especially, you know, we got the percent damage nerfed pretty decently, the new weird dual cost. I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. But the main reason that we use Molten Whip is just because Flame Lash is not good enough, unfortunately. And the reason for that is that Flame Lash is a pressure-based spammable, and we are in a burst-based meta. And so pressure-based spammables are just not going to compete in a meta like this. Especially also if, like, you take into account the fact that Flame Lash still has a bunch of problems with it, with, like, recognizing when a target is off balance. Sometimes it consumes the off balance. Sometimes it only, you know, the Power Lash only works once and not twice. Like, or all the time. Like, I feel like ever since they, quote, buffed Flame Lash, the ability has been really buggy, really weird. It feels really bad and is a lot less predictable than it used to be in the past. Because, like I said, sometimes it just doesn't fucking work when it's supposed to work. And so, for that reason, I just think that Molten Whip is just better. You know, it's a burst spammable in a burst meta. It works all the time. But and it also gives you a big boost to your weapon and spell damage, which is really helpful because it also applies to your other abilities and to your heals on your back bar, which is super cool. And so for that reason, really like Molten Whip over Flame Lash. Still don't really know how I feel about the new whip, but unfortunately it is kind of all we have right now, so it is what we use as our spammable. We do still use Burning Embers as our claw morph of choice. This is going to deal flame damage over 24 seconds and heal us for 102% of the damage done with this ability. It also applies burning status effect as well, which can reduce the cost assuming combustion is not on cooldown. Burning Embers, to me, I tested Venomous Claw, which is just more damage. It puts way too much of a strain on your stamina pool. But also, like, the Burning Embers hot, it's kind of like Cauterized now, where it's, like, superbly okay. But it rounds out the healing package of the build really, really nicely. You know, it gives us a second hot on top of Vigor. We have 2 burst heals with Shattering Rocks and Coag. And so, even though this ability is a shadow of its former self, it's still worth using over Claw. And for that reason, it is going to be my Searing Strike morph of choice and is still definitely worth using. We also use Shattering Rocks. Shattering Rocks is always paired with Molten Whip, while you will pair Fossilize with Flame Lash. Now, this stuns enemies, can't be blocked, can't be dodged, deals flame damage now, and you're healed when the ability expires. The heal off of this is super juicy. It's really, really, really strong. Can't say enough good things about this ability. I'm very happy to see more people running this because it is very good, much stronger than Fossilize paired with Molten Whip. And yeah, this is probably just one of my favorite CCs in the game. It's just extremely, extremely potent. And so it's also going to help us proc our Minor Brutality, even though, you know, we also do have igneous weapons. It just helps the uptime on it, especially because we barely need to cast igneous weapons anymore. So it just helps the uptime on that Minor Brutality a bit. So very, very good skill. Generates ultimate, generates stam. Really, really good. Noxious Breath is going to be our breath morph of choice, dealing poison damage over 24 seconds and giving us major breach for that roughly 6k pen. Now, something that I got commented on my previous video that I want to address is people were saying, Dottz, Noxious is not more damage than Engulfing Flames. You're wrong, and no, I'm not. If you actually do the math, Engulfing Flames, when it is at its peak, says that it is only 6% damage increase. Now, the way that resistance damage works is that 660 resistance is 1% damage mitigation. So obviously 660 pen is 1%, you know, damage increase because you're penning through said resistance. And so you have an ability that's giving you roughly 6k pen. So if you just do math, you know, 6k divided by 660, you're looking at a little bit shy of 10% damage increase. And so Noxious is just going to be stronger. You know, it's going to be penning through roughly that much. So, you know, that will have roughly 10% less damage mitigation against you. So you will just be simply dealing more damage. Now, the only time that Noxious Breath will not be as good as Engulfing Flames is if you already have another source of major breach present. So if you're, you know, have major breach coming from another skill in your build, or if you have a group mate that's running Noxious, in that case, yes, Engulfing will be more damage for you and your party. But assuming that we're playing solo small scale, Noxious is the better morph between the two. It just factually deals more damage. And so for that reason, we just don't run Engulfing Flames anymore. And Noxious is now going to be our buff of choice. Personally, I don't even know how I would fit in another source of major breach unless I got it off of a set. But like, then you'd be sacrificing a really good set for just like major breach. And I just don't think it would be worth it at all. And for me, I just think it's just such an easy problem to solve by just using Noxious. Now, we also do use Flames of Oblivion. Flames of Oblivion is so good this patch. Flames of Oblivion has always been a really good ability, but with our dots being really crappy now, Flames of Oblivion is just become more valuable. So this shoots out 3 fireballs every 5 seconds to deal damage, and this also gives us our major crit buff. This ability, I cannot express to you how important it is right now. The dots that come from your class now are pretty poo-poo, and so Flames of Oblivion helps give you some just consistent, you know, damage hitting every 5 seconds. But also, if you combine it with like the Leap Molten Whip combo, it just adds to the burst of that combo, allowing you to really take targets down fast. On top of that, like, one of the things that feels really weird about Molten Whip is that because they did like lengthen the duration of like all the dots in the game, Molten Whip, like, you have to basically like cast Flames of Oblivion a bunch, like, to keep Molten Whip up, because, you know, Noxious Breath, 24 seconds, right? Burning Embers, 24 seconds. And then let's say you do your Flames of Oblivion once and then you whip. Well, let's say you're ready to still be offensive. You know, your dots will have a really hefty duration on them. And so in the past, it would be really easy to just kind of like refresh the dots periodically, and it will allow you to continue to whip at 3 stacks. But you find yourself doing like flames, whip, flames, whip a lot more frequently than you did in the past. And so for that reason, like, Flames is just an insanely valuable skill to have this patch, and your damage, I think, will be really low if you do not have it. So very, very, very important skill. Staple, in my opinion, now on the front bar. It's been, in my opinion, for a couple of patches, but even more so now. Very, very, very good skill. I still do use Ferocious Leap on my front bar. This deals flame damage to all enemies, knocking them back and stunning them for 2 seconds. But it also gives us a roughly 33k damage shield because of how much HP we have for 6 seconds. This proportion of your ability will scale off maximum health. Absolutely gigunda shield with Ferocious Leap. But one of the great things about Leap is its versatility. It's a very cheap costing ultimate. It launches you for a gap closer. It deals instantaneous burst damage. It is a CC. It gives you a big shield. It looks very cool. It just does it all. It's offensive, defensive, crowd control, gap close. It's a very versatile ultimate. Now, I know some people absolutely love Corrosive. If you love Corrosive, use Corrosive there. But in my opinion, I just don't think Corrosive is as good as Leap. Corrosive is also a lot more telegraphed. It is more expensive. Personally, for me, if I ever fight a Corrosive DK and I see them pop Corrosive, I just walk away until Corrosive wears off, and then I go back in. And I also do feel personally that Corrosive can give you some false sense of tankiness. A lot of times that 3% of your max health doesn't really affect the dots all that much. And so, like, I just personally feel that the Leap Shield and the versatility of the skill is worth it over Corrosive. But if for some reason you do disagree with me here, you can run Corrosive here, perfectly fine, go ahead. But I am always a fan of Leap. I do think it's a bit better of an ultimate overall. It's really good. Also, if you pool it with Balorg, shit hits hard as hell and adds a lot more burst into your combo. You can also surprise people with it, do really cheeky things with its abilities. So I really, really do like Leap and do recommend running it. Back bar, we are using igneous weapons as our form of major brutality. This shit is insanely good. Gives you major brutality for 72 seconds. On top of generating ultimate and returning stamina due to Earthen Heart passives. This ability was already the most Magicka efficient source of major brutality in the game, and they just made it even more Magicka efficient. So there's even less of a reason now to use Degeneration or other skills. So Degeneration will cost, I believe it is 68 Magicka per second of major brutality, while Igneous Weapons cost only 50 Magicka per second of major brutality. So it's significantly more Magicka efficient. And so for that reason, highly recommend using Igneous Weapons if you're not using it. People have also asked me, why do you not use Molten Armaments? Because it sucks. Empower is a PvE buff. It adds literally 80 damage to your light attacks. That is crap. It's also way less Magicka efficient. So that's a PvE morph right there. But Igneous is going to be what you want to use for major brutality. And if you're dueling or something, you know, chuck degen on, fine. But for open world, Igneous is better, not only just from the Magicka efficiency perspective, but being able to pre-buff is so nice. So nice. You don't need a target to be able to cast degen and, you know, get your major sorcery going. It's just nice to be able to just use this. And then for 72 seconds, you don't have to worry about major brutality. Super, super good. And that's why we recommend Igneous. We do now use Resolving Vigor on the back bar. I know it's level 1. Close your eyes. Don't look at it. Pretend it's level 4. The tooltip would be higher. But right now, Vigor is going to be the solo small scaler healing over time ability of choice. Now, the reason being is that the new rapid regeneration will increase by up to 50% based on how much HP you're missing, right? It scales. And if you do the math, Resolving Vigor, or excuse me, rapid regen deals as much healing as Resolving Vigor does at its peak. But, like, that's what Resolving Vigor does all the time. So, like, pretend I had, you know, rapid regen in front of me. Rapid regen, when your HP is at 0, would heal as much as Vigor does right now. But then Vigor also gives you minor resolve. So there's just no reason for solo small scaling to really use rapid regen unless stamina sustain is a concern. Otherwise, Vigor is going to be the better choice. It heals for way more. It gives you minor resolve, which is like 5% roughly damage mitigation. It's very, very, very good. Highly recommend using it. I use it on literally every single one of my builds except for one this patch, okay? It's very good. Definitely recommend. It's also the reason we were able to go to the Ice Staff, which now gives us access to stronger blocking, which is super good. So Resolving Vigor is going to be our healing over time skill of choice in the Lost Depths patch. Now, we also still have Coagulating Blood, an absolutely juicy heal on Coag. Draws in your Draconic Blood to heal for 9,200. Increasing by up to 50% based on your missing health. Really, really good skill. Heals for a shitload, especially if it crits, especially now with our medium armor passes, which is super lit. The Major Fortitude is completely trash, but we don't really care about that anyway. It's just for the burst heal, just, you know, for that big recovery, and this thing is a juicy heal. I really love the place that Coag is in, and I think it's actually a very, very, very solid burst heal for the MagDK. We also still do use Volatile Armor, very good armor buff. This is going to give us our Burning Heart passes from Draconic Power. Major resolve buff for our resistances, gives us another dot, returns flame damage when we receive direct damage. Just a very, very good skill and will be our armor buff of choice. Now, we do use Race Against Time. I know, Dottz Gaming, not being a vampire. It's very, very weird. But this was also played into... This also played into the fact that I felt like MagDK needed more damage this patch, right? We now get access to Minor Force, which increases our crit damage by 10%. I feel like I needed this combined with the medium armor crit damage amplification to be able to reach those peak damage numbers to burst people down. And that is what makes Rat so good. On top of that, Stage 1 Vampire was causing me to have stamina sustain issues. Because even though Stage 1 Vamp only increased your cost by 3%, a lot of your core combat skills are pretty expensive. And so if you're increasing a big number by 3%, it's going to be a solid increase, you know, a solid increase of costs. And so because of that, dropping Vampire fixed a lot of my stam sustain problems and made my Magicka sustain easier, so it made it a lot easier to run that try cost reduction glyph. But also, one of the biggest reasons I never ran Rat in the past, and also running Rat is huge because I now get access to Minor Force, but one of the reasons I never ran Rat in the past was because the 2 seconds of Snare and Root Immunity was way too short. You were casting this ability all the time in order to kite. But now it's 4 seconds, and the Minor Force is 20 seconds. So it makes this ability way, 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 way better to use. The quality of life on the skill is insanely good. And so for that reason, I do think that Race Against Time is now... pains me to say this. It is now officially better than Mist Form. If you're still a vampire, especially off of my recommendation, unfortunately, it is time to drop it. It hurts our sustain too much. We need more damage, and Race Against Time gives us that damage on top of giving us some solid mobility buffs. We also do use Temporal Guard on the back bar. You could also put Corrosive here as well if you want Corrosive and Leap. Personally, I like Temporal Guard here because it gives me access to Major and Minor Protection, Major Resolve and Minor Resolve. It just adds a lot of extra tankiness into the build, in my opinion. You can also do some cheeky plays with Undo if it, doesn't decide to bug out. And so I do like Temporal Guard here on the back bar, but your back bar ult is pretty flex. You can kind of do whatever you want with it depending on the circumstance. Now, talking about our stats and other things on the build, guys, we're rocking about 30k maximum Magicka, just shy of 32k maximum health, 21k maximum stam, about 1030 Magicka recovery. We have about so close to 4,000 unbuffed weapon damage, and that is before Major Brutality, Minor Brutality, and we have our weapon damage glyph on the back bar. We have Burning Spell Weave. We have a lot. We have about 28% weapon crit with just shy of 6k penetration, but don't forget, with Noxious and with Balorg, that will go up quite a bit. We have 20,742 spell resist with 16,900 physical resistance. And then on the back bar, it's up to 24 and 20. But don't forget, guys, that these get buffed quite a lot by Major and Minor Resolve. As you can see, we are at 33k spell resistance and 29k physical resistance. And this number will only go up higher when we're afflicted with the magical status effect because we are a Breton. We also do have Major and Minor protection, too, making us nice and beefy. Then we also have 2,700 critical resistance. We use the Atronach Mundus Stone and the Bewitched Sugar Skulls buff food. We are using 13 points into health and 51 points into Magicka to give us our stat numbers. In terms of our potions, guys, I know this is an expensive recommendation, but it is the best. It is going to be your Essence of Magicka, your Magicka Stamina, and Minor Heroism potions. These give you a gross amount of sustain. You get Major Intellect and Major Endurance, which helps your recovery. You get big boosts to your stats. And by the way, when should you use your potion as a DK? You don't use it like other classes. You use it when you need the bursts of healing, not necessarily to maintain the buffs. But also, Minor Heroism just combines with the build really, really well. Helps us get access to ultimates more easily, which gives us more Magicka Stamina and health sustain, as well as higher uptime on Balorg. So the Heroism here has a lot of value, which makes these potions by far the best. If you cannot afford these, though, regular Tri-Stat potions will be your second choice here. Now, in terms of races, I'm going to have to recommend the Breton. I think Breton is going to be your best race for the build. Not only does it give you additional Magicka and spell resistance, but it gives you Magicka recovery, and most importantly, spell cost reduction with 7% cost reduction. However, the other race that I would recommend for this build would be the Imperial, simply due to the fact that 2,000 health and 2,000 stamina will be very, very valuable for this build, as well as that 6% cost reduction will affect everything, including your stamina skills, where my Breton does not have that luxury. I will say, though, if you do run the Imperial, you will want to change some of these prismatics to regular Magicka glyphs to help pad the Magicka that you will lose from no longer being a Breton. Now, guys, going into our CP, we are going to have Deadly Aim for single target and dot damage increase, Master at Arms for direct damage increase, Ironclad for direct damage reduction, and Resilience for crit damage reduction. We are scared of being bursted this patch, not being whittled down. And so for that reason, Ironclad and Resilience are by far your two most stat-dense like blue CP defensively. They just give you the most mitigation against the stuff that you are scared of in Serial. Now, in our red CP, we have Boundless Vitality for 1,400 maximum health, Survival Instincts for 25% core combat reduction. This is huge for our build. Really, really necessary for that stamina maintenance. You will notice if you do take this into a battleground, you will notice the loss of Survival Instincts. We also do have Pain's Refuge for 2% damage reduction for every 2 negative effects up on you, up to a maximum of 20%, and then Sustained by Suffering for 150 recovery if you are afflicted by a negative effect. Now, in terms of the rotation for this build, guys, you are going to want to maintain Volatile Armor, Igneous Weapons. Now, typically, and before I enter a fight, I also like to use Rat for my Force and Vigor for my Minor Resolve. Then, you also do Flames of Oblivion. You then apply Burning Embers and Noxious Breath to your targets, and then you go into your Stun and into your Whip. And you basically just want to focus from there on buff and debuff maintenance. Maintaining your Volatile and Igneous as well as your Flames of Oblivion is going to be your highest priority. You'll pretty much be maintaining Minor Resolve naturally from Vigor as you just kind of play, because you will be needing to heal yourself, obviously, and that will passively keep the Minor Resolve up on you. Now, typically, I'll use Race Against Time in one of two ways. Either A, if I'm going for a really, really big burst, I'll use this to get my Minor Force up, or obviously if I just need to kite. In terms of the ways that you can do burst and stuff, there's a lot of different combinations. You can obviously go Fossilize, Weep, Lip. You Fossilize, Leap, Whip. You could do just Leap into Whip. You have a lot of different options. The key to really bursting people is to just not telegraph everything. Be a little tricky, right? One of the good things with Leap too is that because it gives you really hefty damage shield, you can kind of bait people with it. So if you are fighting a particularly tough opponent, what you can do is you can kind of bait your HP a little bit low, and then if they're not CC immune, turn on them with Leap into Whip, and it's a surprising amount of damage. And a lot of times the people over push, they won't have their buffs up, and then from there you're on the offensive and you have a giant damage shield covering your HP. But something that you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you have 3 stacks on your Whip before you use your Leap. That's because you want all 3 stacks of Seething Fury to be getting that 300 weapon damage to make your Leap deal as much damage as possible. So making sure your BSW is active and having 3 stacks of Seething Fury will maximize that Leap damage. Also, if you're fighting a particularly tough opponent, pooling your ultimate with Balrog will be really, really, really valuable. It'll just allow you to hit that burst damage on your opponents much harder. But I would say kind of feel out your opponent depending on who you're fighting. If they're really tanky, pool. But I would say at first, you can use your ultimates pretty liberally, and then use them mostly for sustain and for pressure. But I think, and like I said, obviously, to play defensively, maintaining Burning Embers is going to be important. A lot of people just to give you that heal over time. Using Resolving Vigor as a hot is going to be really good to keep your health topped off. But what I like to try to explain to people is that burst heals are supposed to be used to recover you from really, really low HP, and then hots are used to top you off. So typically, if I'm really, really low, I'll look to do Coag first, and then once Coag brings me back up to a respectable HP pool, right? Then, and only then, do I go Vigor Bar Swap. And now I can go offensive while Vigor passively tops me off, right? When your HP is low, use burst heals. As it starts to get higher, swap to your hot, and then that'll allow you to bar swap, and you will still be passively healed while you now can go offensive. And then at that point, you can go into a Shattering Rocks, which will then give you another burst heal, top you off, and then it will allow you to go offensive. But guys, I do think that is pretty much it for my MagDK build this patch. I've tested a lot of stuff this patch, and let me tell you, this build feels absolutely amazing. It is very, very, very fun in all types of content. I've had really good success with this in high MMRBGs, open world PvP, duels. It is really, really, really fun, and I do very highly recommend it. There's a written version as well in the description below if you do want to refer to that on my website, dottsgaming.com. But guys, that is going to be it for me today in my updated MagDK PvP build. If you do have any questions about the build, please feel free to leave a comment below. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it a lot if you left a like on it. And of course, subscribe for some more ESO and MMO content. Appreciate y'all stopping by today. Thank you all very much. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.